Seen those? Have you seen those charts? I mean, they chart from monkey to man. And you see them in textbooks everywhere. And they say, this is how we got here. This is where we came from. Is that true? Well, we've heard about the Peking man. We've heard about the Piltdown man. We've heard about the Java man. He liked coffee. We've heard about Lucy. We've heard about all these characters. And we thought, man, that must be scientific because we've seen pictures of these dudes and dudettes. We've seen them in our science textbooks. This must be real. Guess what? It's an artist's depiction. They didn't find a complete being like that somewhere in the desert or underground. They found a tooth. They found a little bone. And some artist, a scientific artist, sat down and he drew a picture. This is what this individual looked like. He was pre-man. He was basically an advanced monkey. But he was in the evolutionary chain. This is what he looked like. This is what he ate. These are the tools that he used. This is how he lived. This is what he was all about. And I want to tell you, there's a word for that. It's called fiction. Fiction. And baloney, too. That's the Greek word, right? It's called fiction. That's exactly right. It's somebody's imagination. And if you study these different characters, the Piltdown man, the Java man, all these different ones, you'll find that almost every one of them has been proven to be fraudulent. Somebody was trying to get a government grant. They had to come up with something. They drew a picture. Here's what we found. They found a little tiny bone or a little tiny tooth. And many of these have been proven totally fraudulent. One tooth turned out to be a hog's tooth. That's all that it was. And they had this elaborate scheme of some prehistoric creature, somebody in that chain from monkey to man. You know, if evolution was really true, wouldn't you expect to find some kind of fossils maybe that kind of looked like they were cross species, transitional? They were between species. Wouldn't you expect to find something like that? Guess what? They've never found them. And wouldn't you expect to find those earlier life forms way down here in the Earth's strata, and then more complex life, more complex life, more complex life? Wouldn't you expect to find that if evolution was really true? Guess what? You don't find that. You find all life on the same level. It's all intermingled. Little single-celled organisms and human beings and dinosaurs and all the other creatures. They're all in the same level, the same strata. And dogs are still dogs. No matter how deep we dig, we keep finding bones. Dogs are dogs. Cats are cats. And frogs are frogs. There's no crossover breeds at all that have ever been found. Even Charles Darwin said, this is the greatest flaw with my theory. Maybe someday they'll find some of these fossils. Guess what, Charles? We have not found them yet. And we're not going to. Because they're non-existent. It's fiction. It's baloney-ta. That's all that it is. And that fossil record is a major problem with evolution. One more thing, first life. Hey, where'd life come from? Well, the evolutionist says there was a primordial swamp out there, and there were certain gases and chemicals that were kind of swimming around in that mix, and somehow they banged into each other, boom, and all of a sudden, an amoeba appeared. An amoeba. Well, wait a minute. How'd the amoeba come alive? Well, there were these gases and chemicals. So you're saying, scientists, that non-living matter gave rise to life. That non-living material produced life. Well, yes, that's what I'm saying. No, that's not true. That's not scientific. That is called spontaneous generation. And Louis Pasteur and many other scientists in the past have already proven that is not true. Non-living matter cannot produce life. Hear me. Non-living material cannot produce life. I saw the interview with Richard Dawkins. He's an atheist, one of the renowned atheists of our time. And they asked him about this. Well, there was a primordial swamp, you know. Well, where'd that life come from? You're saying that life came from non-living matter? Hey, that's not even scientific, Dr. Dawkins. Well, here's what I think also. Perhaps there were aliens in a spaceship a long time ago. I think they were called the Jetson family. And they kind of rocketed down to the earth, and they gave life to the planet. Well, Dr. Dawkins, one question, sir. Who gave those aliens life? Where'd their life come from? And who gave them life? And who gave them life? And who gave them life? You see, creationism has an answer because it tells us that we serve a living God. And the Bible says that he breathed into Adam the breath of life, and Adam became a living soul. And biologically, that makes sense. Life begets life. It makes better sense than evolution. Because if you're an evolutionist, you got to turn your back on science that you say you believe in. Because it's not scientific at all. First life. How many of you saw the movie Contact? Did you see that movie? Anybody see that? Okay, a few of you did. I saw that movie. Some of you said, I wouldn't dare raise my hand about now. But I saw that movie. A good movie for movie's sake. But Jodie Foster stars in that movie. And basically, she's a scientist. She has these big dishes set up in the desert. And they're trying to receive a message from outer space. Because they believe, quote, in intelligent life somewhere out there. Okay? So they're trying to pick up some signal. And all of a sudden, one day, she hears these numbers. 1, 2, 3, 5, 7. She hears those numbers. And she automatically concludes, those are prime numbers. 1, 2, 3, 5, 7. Those are prime numbers. And she concludes that these numbers means that there's some intelligence that's out there that's conveying this message back, just these prime numbers, 1, 2, 3, 5, 7. And she gets all excited. Now, here's what you need to know about that movie. It was written by a man by the name of Carl Sagan. You know that guy? Carl Sagan was an atheist. He was a scientist. And here was a man who said, if we can hear just a handful of prime numbers from outer space, that's going to prove intelligence somewhere. Here's the irony. This scientist, Carl Sagan, turned his back on the living cell. The living cell. Inside of every living cell is enough information to fill 1,000 encyclopedias. Now, in my book, 1,000 encyclopedias trumps 4 or 5 prime numbers any day of the week. Right? And by the way, that's a fictional story. It never happened. But that's what they were saying. If we could just hear prime numbers like that, we would know there's intelligence. When right there, under their microscope, they've got a cell with enough information packed into it to fill 1,000 encyclopedias, and they deny that there's an intelligent designer behind the design. That is totally illogical. And that's what happens with evolution. You end up painting yourself into a corner every single time. The Bible says, in the beginning, God, Elohim, he created the universe. One last thing I want to share with you quickly. Genesis also shows us the unavoidable consequences. Now, you and I know there are consequences for every choice we make, and this choice is no exception. If I believe that God created the universe, or if I believe that evolution did it, and just scientific natural law, no supernatural supervision, there are consequences either way to my belief. Heard about a man. He was a renowned atheist, believed in evolution. He was outspoken about it. And he got sick. He lived in a small town. And so the town began to collect blood because he was facing surgery and it was a desperate need. And they were going to take up some blood for him. And so people began to donate. Well, there was one Christian in town particularly, and this Christian went to donate blood because he wanted to do the right thing. And he went to donate his blood, but he made this comment to the person taking his blood. He said, you know, so-and-so is an atheist. He believes in evolution. I wonder why he didn't go to the zoo and get the original stuff. Bingo. Good question. Right? When the chips were down, he knew where to go. He didn't want monkey blood. He wanted people blood. He knew there was a difference, my friend. He certainly did. Now, why would people choose to be an atheist? And they can choose that. Many people do. We have people in church that choose to be atheists. Why would they choose to be an atheist? Well, for one thing, they have the idea, and they've been taught this, that evolution is scientific and creationism is a matter of faith. And they want to be scientific. They don't want to be unscientific, so therefore they must go along with evolution to be scientific. And they've been taught that. That is not true at all. There are scientific flaws with evolution, and there is a lot of science to support the idea of creationism.